G'day, Rob Robson, Western four-wheel driver. We're here today with Justin Lewis, who's just returned recently from 3 years travelling around the world with his partner Jen in this custom Nissan Patrol. We're here today to have a good look over it. Now Justin, this looks like a great setup, but why the Patrol and why have you gone to so much trouble to set this camper up the way it is?
The decision for us came down to something that was, we wanted something simple mechanically. We wanted to keep something that was something that I could work on myself as well, and I'm pretty familiar with the Patrols and they've got a very good driveline and quite a basic vehicle, so I felt that suited our needs. I didn't want to be chasing parts or bits and pieces. Not that I expect that to happen, but I really wanted to keep the whole platform quite simple and easy to maintain, and something that if I were to have a problem, a mechanic in another country, maybe somewhere that's not so used to dealing with vehicles with electronics in them, could work on it, because it's a fairly basic system. At the end of the day, it's, you know, mechanical diesel injection, and most old trucks are that system. So I felt that was a good call. And that's why I went that way. The camper itself, we knew we had to have a vehicle that we could live in for a longer duration of time, which meant that we were going to be in all different times of the year, different weather conditions, from stinking hot weather, which we're a bit used to, through to snow and sort of alpine environments, and that was quite difficult to sort of get our heads around, and difficult to prepare for. So that was another facet of it. We wanted something we could live inside, get away from the insects, or maybe have the security of being inside as well. And it also needed to fit inside a shipping container. It's not a total priority. You can get your vehicle overseas in other ways, but there's some security provided by shipping, depending on ports you choose. If they're countries that aren't used to drive-on, drive-off ships, or maybe the infrastructure at the port, depending on how well off that country may be, you can suffer theft and that sort of thing. So having it in a container with a sealed lock on the back's an advantage. So that was pretty important. Hence why we stuck with the 265 tyres as well, rather than running a 285 or something, just all trying to help keep the vehicle overall height as low as we possibly could, which we got away with in the end, but it only makes it in by 30 millimetres lengthwise, and we've got to lower the tyres to get it in. It's 50 mil too high for the door, but that was pretty cool. Other than that, the main things we added to it, we didn't want any gas on board, so no gas for cooking, which is, you know, a good way to go, but it's difficult to get refills, foreign countries, gas fittings, adapters, it's all a problem. So we went with Webasto diesel cooktop and diesel heating as well. So we've got a heater in there for those really cold environments, which was great. Other than that, it's just generally the stuff we're used to and we would use here locally.
And you built the whole thing yourself, yeah?
Yeah, I did. I did the whole lot myself. I'm a bit lucky, I suppose. I've been in the camper trailer industry for quite a long time, mostly on the fabric side though, and the canvas manufacture and that sort of thing. But I managed to put the aluminium body together myself as well, which was pretty good. I'm happy with it. Very nice and very clever. He's a very clever guy. He really is. As much as he says he's not, but he does. He is a very clever guy. And to build something like this and spend 3 years going around the world and come back and there's barely a mark on it, so that speaks for itself. Yeah, the camper performed, well, both the camper and the car performed perfectly, really. I can't fault either. We had the normal issues you might have with worn out brake pads and things like that, and chasing oil and servicing in different countries, but as far as failures went, we didn't have anything, which is great. But I suppose the same as you would do locally, if you're maintaining your car and making sure everything's right before you go and drive the canning stock route or around the country, you've just got to do it.
And you free camped as much as you could?
We free camped pretty well in every country we travelled. We were able to free camp, bar a couple of countries where it's very difficult. The UK is almost impossible because there's somebody everywhere you stand, of course, because it's so busy. And Croatia and a few other places, it's banned. You're not allowed to camp at all. But generally, you can do it, and there is a community of people out there doing it, so you can find campsites. You can use some websites and different things to find campsites, but at the end of the day, really, generally, Jen and I would do it the same way we do it here. We just look for a track or outside of town or hide behind a building or just...
And you're totally self-contained, aren't you? You've got the toilet in there and a shower.
We're self-contained, yep. We've got the standard fuel, obviously, on the car. The diesel cooker's got its own fuel supply. the angle fridge, the usual things, and we've got a chemical toilet in here and a
And
pop-up
that's
shower.
pretty well a requirement in some places, isn't it?
It is. Particularly for Europe, which obviously becomes more touring than really off-roading. There are a lot of campsites available to you, but you must be self-contained. You cannot be there without at least a toilet as a minimum, and you must be inside the vehicle. So if you're trying to tent or that sort of thing, you find yourself then being pushed into caravan parks, which is, we don't really want to be doing that, obviously. So they've got very good systems in place through a lot of Europe where you can stop for 24 hours or 48 hours, provided you're self-contained, and you don't spread out around the vehicle. So that was good.
All right. So what about we have a look through it and see what you've come up with?
Okay.
Okay, Justin, how about you talk us through it?
All right. Well, basically we had a few parameters we wanted to work with. So water capacity is a big thing for everybody, obviously. We've got a 40-litre water tank that sits in here between the cab rail and the camper, and there's another 80-litre water tank underneath, bolted to the chassis. We're trying to keep all the weight as low as we can so we can still do our off-roading and feel comfortable with the centre of gravity. Both those tanks are independently used or activated, and they both also run through a Seagull water filtration system, so we don't really have to worry about water. We've got filtered and unfiltered water and gravity feed tap like we're all used to, so if we have an electrical failure or something, we're not relying on the pump to get the water out. Storage, just the normal sort of array of boxes full of bits and pieces. The camper body itself's got a reasonable amount of external storage. You can get in through here and it goes right across the whole width of the vehicle.
Yeah, right.
So it's quite a long storage area, and there's a floor here, so that's quite good. It's also completely sealed from the main camper unit itself, so if you spill something in here, if you've got engine oil or you've got some type of spare in here and you spill it, you don't get that smell through into the camper, because that can be a bit of a problem. The reason we went with off, or just basically straight off the shelf doors, like these doors here, which are a Thetford door, is because they're available all over the world, and we sort of thought, well, if we do break one, we're going to need to be able to replace it, and I didn't really want to go with a custom door. They might not provide as good a stability and security, but that was the thinking behind that. The awning, pretty self-explanatory. It's a fairly high body. We're at 2320 overall for the vehicle, so it's a bit high to have your normal sort of roll-out awning. It was easier to go with this style of wind-out awning.
I can relate to that.
It's just, they tend to rattle a little bit on the rough roads, but other than that, pretty happy with it. That's just a table for obvious reasons. Have a cup of tea or make lunch during the day. It's quite good.
This looks like the business end of the camper, doesn't it? So you want to show us how it works, Justin? Sure.
Well, first that's the funny little tank. That's the diesel fuel tank for the cooker. You can take them from your main vehicle tanks, but given the camper can lift off, it's separate. And we've got outside shower here, which is nice for when you can use it. Underneath, we've put two spares underneath. I'm really a bit paranoid about taking one. We did a few modifications under the vehicle to get them in. It's also part of the reason we stuck with 265s on this car, because we just restricted the space so much. So it's been handy having the two. It's really good. Camper itself, it's quite a simple procedure. Just open the steps up. Now the reason for the steps being the way they are, we get asked that a fair bit, is the door itself's the same thinking for me as the side access hatches. It's off the shelf, so if I break it or something goes wrong with it, I can easily replace it. But these basic doors don't really seal all that well, and of course it's on the back of the vehicle, so it's the worst place for dust as well. So the steps have been made to try to stop that, mitigate the dust getting in.
And this was all your idea?
It's worked well.
No doubt about you.
We've got a little bit of a gap here each side, but I think it creates a neutral zone in there, and the dust just doesn't really transgress into the camper.
Fantastic.
So I'm pretty happy with it. I'll clip that out of the way, make life a bit easier. As far as putting it up goes, it's just switching the back. It's just electric. Pretty straightforward.
How good's that? Hey!
Look, when you're tired and it's dark and
after a big day's driving.
So once it's up, there we go. Well, obviously space is an issue. We're on the back of a Patrol ute.
I'll tell you what, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know.
Fair a Land Cruiser or a Patrol, whatever, you basically got the same sort of size to work with. It's not a lot. And by putting this type of camper on, you're losing that storage as well down the middle of the tray, because we're walking on it. So that sort of was something we had to consider in the way that we designed it. And we got away with it in the end by, we've basically got a bulkhead in the front here. So down in this pocket that you can't really see too well is all the clothes storage area, and we've got an inverter and other bits and pieces in here as well, but that gives us that extra bit of storage that we needed by shortening the living space here. We've got a safe down in here as well, I thought I'd just point out, which was really important for us while we're away, because you can't get to the safe without putting the roof up. The chances of someone being able to break in and get the roof up and find the safe, we thought were pretty
So you'd have passports and all that sort of stuff?
All that sort of stuff, and a bit of cash and that sort of thing. And I can disconnect the electrics to the camper externally with a master switch, so there's no way they can get the roof up.
Yeah, right.
So if we were leaving the car anywhere we were a bit funny about it, we just turn that off.
Yeah.
So that was good. As far as livability goes, it's worked really well. The having the crossways seating here, although we've profiled the body, we feel like we're not sort of sitting on each other.
Not at all.
We can get 2 plates on the table and it works okay. We can clip the TV on here if we're feeling the need to watch something mind-numbing, or we've had a hard day and we need to get away from it. At this point where we are, the bed is above us and it's just on gas struts. So when we want to use the bed, which is a full queen bed, almost, that comes down and sits across here with another ladder down to the floor. I did it that way a couple of reasons. I wanted the lengthways bed. I think, for me personally, I like being side by side in that manner. You can get out of bed easier during the night, and crawling over your partner can be a bit annoying. It's okay for 3 weeks, but not for a few years. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is we've done it that way. The Engel fridge, which you may not be able to see, I'm not sure, sitting here. When the bed is in the down position, you can still sit on the back half of the fridge, or there is seating at the rear.
Right.
So it means one person can be in bed and the other person can be up, make a cup of tea or get up early. That was really important to us because we don't tend to go to bed at the same time, and I think that can get quite irritating. You see a lot of quite large campers as well where the bed's maybe up in the air or lifts out of the way or whatever, but you've both got to go to bed at the same time.
Yeah, right.
So if you're out around the fire having a few vodkas in Russia and having a good time,
and Jen wants to go to bed.
It's not going to work for us. So that was part of the thinking there.
Yeah.
Storage-wise, below me there's internal storage in here. Again, that's a sealed box like the rest of the floor, so that liquids, normally I'd put drinks and things in there now, so if it bursts or anything, it's contained in there, because you don't want it running through the camper. It's going to be a bit of a mission. Storage-wise, we've got quite large drawers with pretty well everything that we need in those, and it's
aluminium.
Yeah, they're all aluminium drawers.
Yep.
And they're on nice little roller slides.
Very nice.
So that works quite well.
It does.
The panelling itself is an aluminium cord composite panel, so it's not a caravan material. Went this way because it's a lot lighter, and given the Patrol's GVM as well, we had to keep that sort of in mind. So I didn't want to use anything that was timber as such. So this material is very good. It's a little bit lighter on the surface. You can punch a hole in it, which I've done, a little bit easier, but again, it's a compromise.
The weight's an issue,
Same with
isn't it?
the bed base and the roof. These are all composite materials, and the floor to keep the weight down. There's aluminium's really only the skin, and then the whole body's lined as well to keep the condensation down, which you can't really stop, but you can certainly mitigate. Sink as usual, filtered water, I think I mentioned before, normal tap water, diesel cookers here. And then you've got another compartment at the back here, just as usual, coffee cups and bits and pieces. The idea behind that compartment was that when the roof's down, if you want to stop for lunch or just make a cup of tea, you can access that back cupboard without having to come inside.
You've thought of everything.
Well, we tried to cover what we could in a sort of small area, and it works well for the size that it is. We always want more room, and sometimes we look at bigger campers and think, wow, gee, if we went a little bit bigger or a bit this or a bit that. But then you get on a trail that's a bit smaller, and those trees and branches, and you sort of think, wow, and the Patrol size is nice, drivable, fits in car parks easy. So I think for us it's worked really well.
And you spent 3 years in it. So
we did. I don't know how we did that, actually. We only had a couple of arguments. I think the longer, it's like driving around Australia or something though too, you get into the groove of it after a while, and the initial couple of months is a bit of a shock to the system.
I can imagine.
It's not even so much being in here, it's just looking out the window and not being able to read anything, and it's all like any of those trips, and it can be quite isolating. Some of these countries, when you get a long way into that type of overland journey, you can't leave. You can't go to the airport and go home if you've had enough. You've got to get the car out as well. That's part of the requirement. So you're sort of really are
Yeah.
locked in.
Very much so.
And we could go into a whole spiel about that side of it, but the camper itself, yeah, it's worked really, really well. Winds, we've had ridiculously strong winds and storms and that sort of thing, and we put the roof down once on one occasion. I think we could have left it up, but it was really, really bad. And I thought, wow, if we damage this here, we're sort of, it's all over. Can sleep in here with the roof down, like one across there and one on the floor, and we have done it, but it's not really good.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You can do it, but it's better than sitting up in the cab.
Yeah.
But it's not very good.
And you did all the wiring yourself as well?
Yeah,
all the plumbing,
everything.
wiring, the whole lot.
Yeah,
Just fantastic. Awesome.
So, I'm pretty happy with
Terrific.
it. It's been good.
I'm obviously in Jen's seat, in the navigator's seat. I've got the laptop in front of me, and that's a custom-made thing as well. You want to talk us through some of the other stuff in here, Justin?
Yeah, so I guess first of all, electrically, I suppose on the car, we've completely separated the vehicle from the camper. There is a DC-DC charging system, which is providing charge to two 100 amp deep cycles in the rear, and then we've got a pretty well standard dual battery system under the bonnet that most people would be running. We've got some loads going to the dual battery system in the car, the computers and that sort of gear, but everything else is running from the camper, which has then got about, I think about 250 watts of solar on the roof. So that's been enough to keep us going. Got a bit close a few times when we didn't get any sunshine for sort of 4 or 5 days. You get down, but it was okay. So for navigation, we've got a Samsung tablet here, and we've also got a small Samsung laptop as well. The reason we've got two in here is that I think the tablet's ideal for normal navigation. I'd recommend it for anyone that's not using one. It's a good system. But the amount of maps we're carrying, it's difficult to operate them comfortably on the tablet, so the laptop gives us a bit more usability. It's also easier to record the journey whilst we're travelling, and it's just come on, that's handy. It allows Jen, as she's navigating as well, she can be entering waypoints or looking for bits and pieces, which is really handy, because I found that the driving, apart from the fact you're on the other side of the road to start with, you can get quite comfortable with that quite quickly, but you tend to drive a lot more carefully, I think.
And under the bonnet, Justin?
So, under the bonnet, it's always a funny one. I'm a bit of a fan of a little bit of modification, but I also like the reliability that comes with keeping things factory, obviously, and I didn't want to be having too much done under there that was possibly going to create an issue. Given the TD42s have been around a long time, I think the Aussie market's pretty well got them figured out. We were looking at doing a fair bit of high altitude driving. We got to about 4,700 metres, I think. It's pretty high. So I put a different turbo on, which gives me boost down a bit lower. It runs out at the top end a bit faster, but it comes in a lot earlier, which turned out to be a good move. It meant I could generally hold a lower gear, or a high gear, sorry, on switchbacks and that sort of stuff. I felt that was good. So there's a bit more fuel going on under there, and a couple of other bits and pieces, different exhaust, 3-inch exhaust. Otherwise, she's pretty well stock standard, so not running a lot of boost. Probably about 12, maybe 15, but anyway, it's okay. We did have some fuel issues in North America, as it turned out. We had gumming in the fuel and a lot of white smoke at about 14,000 feet, which was a filter issue. I'd obviously picked up a dose of bad fuel. You do notice a lot of drivability changes in the car the higher up you get in the mountains, but I think I also noticed that if it's warm weather in the mountains and the altitude, the effect is reduced a lot. The car will start generally reasonably easily in the morning, even if it's maybe been -10 or something overnight, it'll still start pretty well. But if it's very cold in that environment, maybe it's a bit more wintry and there's a lot of snow around, that's a different animal then. So we would try and...
No fuel heaters or anything like that?
Sounds really funny. I would park and open the bonnet in the morning and get the sun on it. I think a fuel heater is a good idea, and I did consider it, but then I looked at all the other little dodgy cars that are driving around these mountain places, and I thought, well, if they can do it, then I'm sure this can make it.
Mate, after all the experience you've had, 3 years of touring around, there would be so many things that you would have in the back of your mind, and Jen in the back of your mind, that you could pass on to other people who were considering doing the same thing. So thanks very much for showing us around. It's been fantastic.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. I wish I was back there now. If anyone's keen, do it. Put it in a container, go. Give the boss notice. Cheers, thanks.